Hello, everyone. Today is April 7th, 2026, Tuesday. Um, I'm still waiting to hear back from CoinGecko. I will keep everyone posted once they do get back to me. The market is anticipating a ground invasion soon in Iran, and that's why you see oil going up and everything else going down, including Bitcoin and gold and silver. And the market, the consensus is that we are going to be bogged down in the Middle East, like back in 2003 in Iraq and in Afghanistan. And it's going to become a quagmire, similar to the Second Gulf War. Personally, I'm not as pessimistic. Um, I think the scenario this time is very different from 2003. First of all, the Second Iraq War was completely unjustified. The false pretext we gave for going into Iraq in 2003 was to look for and destroy the WMDs that Saddam Hussein supposedly owned. But even I could tell, being someone in his early 20s, I could tell that was a false pretense. Um, and I was living in Austin, Texas at that time. So I actually went to the streets to protest against the war. Um, However, I was only, in the minority at that time. In 2003, before the war, 90% of Americans were in support of that war. And almost all mainstream media were in support of it. So we protesters at that time looked like fools, and we were being laughed at and jeered at. Um, and it took probably 8 or 9 years for the vast majority of Americans to realize the Second Gulf War was a mistake, because there was no WMDs. Um, and the Trump administration, I believe, this time around is also very competent compared to W. Bush. In my opinion, W. Bush was probably the most incompetent president in the history of U.S. And because we had a very incompetent commander-in-chief, his cabinet was also very inept, and that incompetency propagated to the military uh, in 2003, and the results showed. But I believe the Trump administration and the cabinet and the U.S. military are incredibly competent right now, and we see that in the most recent rescue mission of the two F-15 pilots that got shot down um, in Iran. It's going to be, I think, studied for decades all over the world in military schools as a textbook rescue mission for, um, you know, its troops. So, and also earlier in January, we had the capture of Maduro, which was also an incredibly uh, smooth and well executed mission. Um, and I think the same thing is going to happen this time when we're sending ground troops. It's not going to be a long, drawn out war. It's going to be short and decisive. And instead of occupying Iran, like what we try to do with Iraq, once the IRGC falls, we're going to give the power of the country back to its people. And its people, unlike in 2003 in Iraq, 90% of Iranians are against the IRGC regime. They know how evil this regime was. Back in 2003, I would say the vast majority of Iraqis were at most ambivalent towards Saddam Hussein. So when US began to occupy Iraq after the military campaign was over, people rose up. Terrorist cells rose up to fight against the American troops. But this time around is different. Iranian people, uh, thousands, tens of thousands of them got slaughtered in January protest. Many Iranian fathers lost their sons, and Iranian mothers lost their daughters. And that's why the IRGC is fighting to the bitter end, because it knows if they lose this war, it not only means the end for their regime, but also the end for their lives, for these IRGC members and the passage members' lives. So that's why they're fighting tooth and nails, because they know that they did many evil things against their own people, the Iranian people, over the past 47 years. And once they fall, there will be hell to pay from the Iranian people. So once the ground forces are able to capture the major cities, going to Tehran, the Iranian people will be the first one to come out to support and welcome the American troops. And that's going to be the deciding factor that's going to secure this victory for America and Israel. That's my personal assessment, of course. Anything could happen in a war. I guess we'll find out in a few weeks whether this prognostication is going to turn out to be true. So thank you so much for tuning in. I am, again, very hopeful and optimistic, not only about the war, but about the future of Wojak. I know right now our token is in the gutters, but please stay encouraged, stay hopeful, and I believe things will turn around once the dust settles in the Middle East. Thank you so much for tuning in.